God, he had such a red face, didn't he?
I believe he was a drinker, was he not?
I believe he was a drinker and also, I guess, what would you call that? A staker? He liked his steak, didn't he?
Very high blood pressure there.
There was something off about him, right?
Yes, yeah.
And I remember saying, what do you think it is? Maybe you wouldn't trust him in a crisis. Maybe, he's the sort of guy who, there's a fire, that's his opportunity to rape your sister or murder your cats or fulfill some sort of dark fantasy that he's never said anything about, but he's always been waiting for the opportunity to enact. And you said, no, I think it's like he wears a cock ring all the time or something. Welcome to the Georg Rockall-Schmidt Show. Hello, Damien.
Hello, George.
Hello, Damien.
Like, he really kind of underestimated the size of his cock, so once he got it on, it was never coming off. He's like, albeit, his face is very, very red because of the sheer pain, but it's nothing compared to the state of what's left of his penis, which is now.
So, you mean he looked at this tiny cock ring and he was like, I have a tiny cock, and then he put it on and it was just like immediate pain, and he just winced to himself. I've never been so unhappy to be so wrong.
I kind of thought he could look at it, he's like, oh, I've got an average dong, what have you, but I'm going to get the most out of this. I understand, like, the science of cock rings, so if I go smaller, it'll trap more blood in, I'll have even more of a rock-hard erection. And then, he sealed his fate with that very poor decision-making
When
right
you're
there.
considering the science of cock rings, you've got to think on the quantum plane. It's not good enough to just think in everyday physics. You've got to think on the quantum plane about not just the shape, not just the elasticity, but what's happening in the void. That's the most important part in quantum science, right? The empty bits. It's the same with cock rings. You've got to think about the empty bits. No, but Dr. Phil Hammond advised us once that with a cock ring, you've always got to make sure you get one with handles to get it off.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
So maybe that's what happened. Maybe he's just got a big, tight... It's got to be dangerous to do a cock ring, hasn't it? Do you want to do a cock ring with me?
The perturbed look in Carl's eyes was that he remembered a little kind of factoid he heard about how farmers used to castrate horses back in the ye olden days. What they would do is they just tie a belt as tight as they could around a horse's nutsack and just wait for the lack of blood flow just kind of rot them off.
I thought they still do that.
Do they still do that?
I know.
I imagine now they do it with lasers, man.
They do it with goats.
This is the fucking future.
Goats, but they do it with lasers. What, like it's like Geordie from Star Wars, and he pulls off his visors and beams the balls off. They do it with lasers.
But that's a very inexact science. I mean, granted there is a level of efficacy there, but once you've also cauterized the horse's arsehole shut as well, you're going to encounter other problems. You might have done well to just leave them be.
However you do it, though, if you do it with lasers or whatever, what you would have to do is do it so fast it would be the same effect as whipping a linen tablecloth off a table that's been made up with all the cutlery and everything. It's all about speed, right? It's all about you can't do that slowly. You have to do it quickly. So maybe you could just use an everyday scimitar or a pirate cutlass, as long as you did it quickly.
Yeah, as long as you got the clearance as well. I mean, never forget to kind of duct tape the horse's cock to its belly, because if you don't, that's gonna be a big mess.
Yeah, I mean, which way are you going? Are you going back to front or front to back?
I guess you'd have to perch underneath the horse's belly, facing kind of out through the legs, through the back legs. I think if you approach it from behind, you're probably just going to sever a few tendons as well and kind of, you'd render this horse lame.
Couldn't you put two big blow-up airbags on either side of the horse, blow up the airbag so the horse is trapped but not uncomfortable, and then turn the horse upside down so the horse's legs are in the air, and wouldn't do it that way?
Okay, so straddle the horse on its upturned belly? Yeah,
and then just from the back of your collar you produce a cutthroat razor.
Yeah, okay, yeah. If we're going to dial down to a razor, but in terms of a scimitar, I don't think you've got enough. I think swiftness will be the key, but I don't think you've got enough clearance to kind of really achieve that swiftness with the lack of space that you'll have.
Because of the leg, that would only work because with a horse that doesn't have legs. Yeah. If you have a horse that doesn't have legs, maybe that's how you should consider castrating it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a given at this point.
Maybe you could just talk them off. You just like negotiate with the horse. Listen.
No, negotiate with the horse. You know, you don't look it in the eye at all. You're square against the balls trying to talk them off as if they're their own kind of like sentient thing and they can be reasoned
quite
with.
deaf as well.
No, but what you do is you just take a pencil and kind of like jam a little hole in the side so the sound can get in, right?
Maybe that's the way to do it. You got your horse, it's upside down, and then you're just like, well, I'll just drain the balls. I imagine because the balls are full of piss, right? That's all you're doing. Or you get rid of the piss. Oh, that's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, not in the testicles, of course, but the scrotum itself. I mean, that's where piss is naturally stored before it, is bled out of the penis.
I bet most people don't know this, but so a woman's breasts are obviously fat mainly and muscle, and obviously most people think milk, but no, actually the milk is much further deeper in the body. And
it comes from the stomach, doesn't it?
Well, what happens is when the lady gets pregnant, she does produce milk, but as you say, it's in the stomach region, which presses on her bladder, so the tits become full of piss. The baby still gets milk because of the tubes inside and all of that. But
the science behind it is because piss is naturally sterile, so that's what makes sure the milk itself is safe for consumption by the infant child, which will have a severely deficient immune system at this point.
Exactly right. If the woman's tits weren't full of piss, then she'd have to boil that milk when it came out of her.
She'd have to boil her own tits.
She'd have to boil her tits. She'd have to sunbed herself before feeding.
Welcome to Biology with George and Damien.
The prize I would want for winning the Generation game, if I could have any prize at all, just 12 hours in God's laboratory tweaking mankind.
I thought you were going to say, my prize would be to give a series of lectures at my old school and really send a generation off the fucking rails.
Yes, I would love to do that.
Yeah, but it's not just a series of lectures, but the things that you talk about will be tested, and a lot of whatever the qualification is now. Is it still GCSEs?
Exams.
They're still just exams. Are still hinge on whatever nonsense it is that you in fact talk. And it's not a question of reciting these things verbatim on an exam paper. No, they have to answer questions as though the things that you talk about are in fact carved in fucking stone. Fact.
Well, okay, there's two things here. The first is the whole thing about me going back to my old school to give a series of lectures makes it sound like I would go in a tweed jacket with leather patches on the elbows, smoking a pipe, talking about all of the fucking archaeology I'd been doing in the Pakistan. And
I'm back from the New World.
Yeah, exactly. Saying things like, "We now believe that the skull of the Macedons was actually not that different to our own," and all of that. And the Macedons are like a group of people who are still alive, and that they've been there fucking building my house. Like, you what? Oh, you believe our skulls aren't that different to yours? Great.
Because fortuitously they've kind of followed you into school because you refused to pay them and they were going to lynch you.
But also, changing the subject, your mention of GCSEs or whatever, fucking hell, do you remember going through GCSEs with such a kind of, such a feeling of pertinence behind them? I mean, God, the idea that anything like that would matter now.
Yes, yeah. I was wondering what you were going for, but yeah, at the time, because, I guess it's one of those things when you're that young as well, like the 2-year period where you're essentially like studying up until these exams feels kind of monumental. So a 2-year period is like nothing these days. But
yeah, right. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, because we've got a lot of listeners who aren't familiar with our quaint ways, where it's kind of like, and how did you do? Did you get an A, B, or C? Oh, no, this is England. I got a 12th on the farthing and a down. Oh, is that good? It is good, but it's not as good as a sunrise. All right, then. Get away from me, you English person. You fucking hobbit. But in England, everyone has to stay in school until they're 16. Is that right? Is that still right? Or have we changed it to 18?
I think it's 18 now. I think it's 18.
Really? Okay, so when we went to school, everyone had to stay until you were 16. Then you would do 11 exams, or a series of 11 different exams for 11 subjects that would cover maths, English, a foreign language, physics, biology, history, that sort of thing. And then if you wanted to, you could stay on school for another 2 years. You just study 4 things. And then one of those 4 things is what you would either go to college with or maybe go into after you finish school, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it used to be everyone had to stay until you were 16, and then you would do these exams, and these exams would determine the rest of your life. I'm sure this is the same for every country that have different processes for examining kids, but really it's all the same. It doesn't fucking matter once you've been in the workplace for 5 years now. Or maybe
not at all.
Maybe
I don't feel like...
Yeah. I mean, if you want to be a doctor or something, then just...
If you're really good at your GCSEs, you're already buckled down, your head's in the right place. As soon as you clock over 16, you can potentially be qualified as a doctor. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Anything less than that, then get ready for your life of shelf stacking.
Yeah. It's all about promise. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're going to be a doctor, or you're going to be a shelf stacker. This is Britain.
I don't know. I just kind of remember a lot of the I would say lesson plans, but even the syllabus, they're all kind of, they were so flimsy in hindsight. I mean, one of my kind of favorites was in biology. I think we had this coursework project which accounted for our final grade, but it was supposed to teach us, I think, like about the scientific method when it comes to experimentation. And the experiment that we were asked to kind of posit was I actually don't know what the brief was, but what it culminated as was maggot racing, and what you could do to kind of impede or to either hinder or benefit the maggot. We'd have to like devise a rudimentary kind of like race course, and then like a series of fucking variables that would kind of determine that, which is kind of, you can kind of see where they're going there. But they must understand that once you get like a group of 15, 16-year-olds doing such shit like that,
those maggots are getting eaten.
Yeah. That was complete fucking chaos, absolute fucking chaos. And yeah, that's not like hyperbole at all. Like there were a couple of people in our group that just ate the maggots for fucking attention.
Yeah, you and me. No, I as usual, I wasn't there. I didn't go to school, luckily.
I mean, like, I seem to remember, like, one of the things, like, how we could slow them down was, like, if we put them in the fridge, cold temperatures will like, kind of, like, fuck them up a little bit, and they just won't be able to do it. So some people, like, put them in, like, iced water, and it's like, these maggots are dead.
Make them run.
What did you fucking expect?
If
you can't understand that from the fucking offset, then why on earth are you turning up at fucking school? You've already kind of sealed your fucking fate as a meat packer. Now move on.
Make them race on like sandpaper and stuff like that.
Sandpaper was, that was
the fucking maggot humane society will hear about this.
Oh dear. And like people are like, no, it's not moving, I gotta push it. And they just like grate these maggots to fucking death to a fine puree. It's like, for fuck's sake. Like after like the first time you nudged it, and you knew what you were doing, but you were just running it up and down the course, back and forth. You horrible little shit.
I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't there. I know there's people listening to this who are probably like in their teens and don't exactly know how the world works. So I'm going to drop some knowledge on you that people won't tell you. But everyone is on heroin and coke. They've just got it under control. Like the people,
they know how to handle their demons.
They handle it. Yeah, the people you see on the streets, they're on bad stuff. Yeah, sure, but everyone's on it. Go buy some. Go get it now. Inject it into your veins.
As a potential role model, we advocate this.
Not only advocate it, are you not doing it? You're missing out.
I'm not doing it right now, but I feel like I'm missing a trick.
I mean, honestly, only squares don't inject crocodile straight into their knobs.
If you want tips, ask our friend Carl.
If you want tips, there's loads of ones that have rotted off. Yeah, we did start talking about Carl. Yeah, he was very red-faced.
Oh dear.
He worked as a temp worker. Just like a very high-end temp worker, going to different firms that needed covering in contract law, and he would work for them, and he would make £500 a day, and he still owed the fucking tax people 20 grand. speaking of white people who are affluent and fuck 'em, I was watching Frasier again.
Oh, fantastic segue.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, Niles drives one of those. Oh, I just can't not say it.
Yeah, but they don't call it a Segway, do they? Don't they call it like the device or something like that? Something really ominous. It's like Niles is on that device again.
I thought they mentioned it at one point, and not,
I remember, I remember it being something specific, something, that was kind of nondescript. Maybe Segway's a brand that they couldn't fucking.
If they couldn't say the brand, what would they call it? Like, oh, are you just enjoying my new gyropede or something?
Well, I think it was like the device or something like that.
The episode was called The Device.
Right. Okay. Maybe that's where I've got my
lines
crossed there.
I know the name of Frasier episodes now, Damien. I'm only one step away from wearing a crochet blanket to the fucking Dollar General.
So yes, you were about to tell me this harrowing story of viewership.
I was
watching Frasier.
I was watching Frasier. I've been watching it for about 6 months from the beginning, and I finished it. I came to the end, as I have done before. I think I must have seen it about 4 times all the way through, and it was very sad because it was coming to an end, and I think visibly everyone knew that this was the biggest thing they would ever do, because when Frasier was around, it was pretty huge.
Yeah.
The stars of Frasier earned a lot of money from it, and it was bizarre looking back at it. It ended in 2003, and I realised watching it, 2003 is when my life started to go wrong.
So this has become, you're going to petition the writers of Frasier to kind of bring it back from the ashes. In some kind of vain hope that Frasier was in fact operating as some sort of good luck charm in your life up until this point. So if you maybe you can kind of turn the tide if Frasier's put back on the air. Obviously,
I was alive before Frasier became a thing, so I imagine that those years were shit too. The 11
years.
The 11 years that Frasier was on, they were cracking. And my life has been in a fucking downward spiral since puberty. Well, yeah. Well, no, I just observed it, and I just thought about how kind of sad it was, and I was wondering if you had any thoughts about Frasier, as soon as you're the Frasier master.
Well, I think that's an undue title, because I don't think I've seen much of the fucking show after like season 7 or 8. I've never seen any of those seasons like start to finish whatsoever. I know I caught like the last episode. I remember I've only seen it like the one time, and that was when they aired it on Channel 4 or something like that.
Give me that fucking crown then. That's mine. I've seen the last show at least twice.
I just said I liked Frasier, and then it's like, okay.
Damien, the whole Frasier thing comes from the Frasier box sets in Damien's kitchen. Who owns a Frasier box set? It's just amazing.
Oh dear. Well, I had 4 of the fuckers.
Yeah.
And for a long time, that was like some kind of like implied catchphrase of mine for some reason. Look at my Frasier box set. Never once did I ever fucking say it, but that was how people kind of like greet me as they walked into the room. Oh, you're right, Damon. Look at my Frasier box set. It's like, excuse me, what? And for a long time, I had no fucking idea. And you spelled out, it's like, yeah, no, we saw you had a box set of Frasier in your house. It's like, that's why? Oh, for fuck's sake.
Who were calling you that for about 4 years? And Shipwreck as well.
And Shipwreck.
Yeah. Why were we calling you Shipwreck?
I was told that it's because, like, the first day we shifted campuses at the beginning of year 9, there was, like, this little... there was these expansive stairs, like in one of the break areas. And at the bottom, there was, they had railings either side. But there's
this is the reason. This is the reason. Okay, yeah, go on.
There was these railings in the middle of these stairs, and they kind of made this triangle formation, right, which looked like a small boat. And like on my first day there on the first break, we all kind of go for a break. I just sit on those railings, and that's it. You know, it's like, oh fuck it, and no one said anything at the time, right? It's just like, oh, look at Damien and his little fucking pirate ship. It's just like something that came to be like a couple of months later. Someone was like, oh yeah, that's Damien's boat. You know, you're right, Shipwreck. It's like, what?
It is that. It is that. I remember Spooner started it, and I said to him like months after, like, why do we call him Shipwreck? And he said, oh, because that's Damien's Shipwreck. And it doesn't look like a boat; it's a fucking triangle.
Yeah, but you know, your kids, you reach when it comes to shit like that. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. I thought that when I asked, I found this out much later on.
Pretty good name.
When I asked them, I thought they were just kind of, sugarcoating it. And the fact was, we wanted to call you Trainwreck because you're such a fucking mess, but that would have been too on the nose, so we called you Shipwreck instead.
Oh, no. No one thought that.
Oh well, I still can't believe that to this day, that no one must have thought that.
I don't think our school had much for nicknames. It wasn't fucking Charterhouse, all right? But I do remember that we had a kid in our year called Horse, and he was called that not because of his dick, but because he really looked like a horse. I mean, he really did. Yeah, like listen. You could look at the year picture of everyone in our year, which was a lot of kids. It was about 400 kids, and if I said, who's Horse? If you took the time to look at everyone's face,
you could leaf through.
You could fucking identify who Horse was, or is.
Yeah, but I'm fairly certain, like that yearbook, because you were asked if you could write your own comment and shit like that, and I'm sure like most of his friends, their comments in that yearbook, I'm sure there's at least one that just says like Bartram is a horse. So you will have been given all the information, even if you weren't able to kind of like land on it just on his looks alone.
Did you have a yearbook? Fuck that shit.
Yeah, fuck that. For a lot of fucking reasons. I seem to remember I've had like this astonishingly goofy photo at the time, because I think they used, for whatever reason, I was not present for like the photo day that year, so they used the thing from the year before when I had these twin block fucking braces in, which were designed to kind of bring my jaw out and forward, right, to sort out this fucking underbite that I had, right? So, but at the same time, I also had this like really, really long hair, but it was not kind of like grimy fucking hair. It was like really like had quite a lot of sheen in this photo. I seem to remember. It was really feminine.
I remember it. It was like fucking Jennifer Aniston had dyed her hair jet black. It was exactly like that. It was like a 90s sort of straight with a wisp at the bottom. Like it definitely had a flick at the bottom, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It had these like fucking curls at the fucking shoulder.
Oh.
Yeah, I could let there.
Fucking hell, doesn't Shipwreck sound like such a fucking winner?
So in this fucking photo, I had this like super feminine hair. But with these twin blocks, I had this huge fucking jaw, and for whatever reason, they snapped this photo. It's a point where I'm looking up as well, so I've got this massive, like, oversized fucking jaw, and this thing, it's just like one of the most bizarre photos I've ever seen of myself, because I can't see quite. I've never looked at like a picture of me and had to kind of figure out what there is actually my fucking face. All I got was the eyes, but everything else was fucking nuts. And that's what they ended up using in the fucking yearbooks. Like, fuck if I'm keeping a record of that shit.
I seem to remember, like, I look like I haven't slept in like a day or two. It's nothing. I look quite dirty, and I'm glaring at the camera, I think, because I think it was a photo that I submitted. So obviously it's a bit of that one.
So I was in the bathtub with the camera still.
That's what I would do now. I think I tried to submit something where it was like it looked like it was like a prison photo.
Right, yeah, that sounds like you.
Yeah. Like it was, yeah, exactly. It was. It had the fucking bars behind me with the height, and it was like there was a joke in it where it was like the bar just above me said like 5 foot, or something, and they wouldn't let me do it. Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. No, we had to we could submit our own photos, and then I did that, and then the people in charge, who were just a bunch of kids, they decided, oh, actually, it's quite a lot of work to sift through all these photos and crop them and everything. We'll just get everyone in, and we'll take their photos on my shitty digital camera. And I remember, like, every photo in that fucking book is pixelated beyond belief. It's like, yeah, it has 15,000 pixels.
Oh my!
Not megapixels, right? You know, if I was going to go retro, I'd fucking use a box brownie. I wouldn't use one of those.
So can I do my coursework on a Polaroid? Like, no. Fuck off.
Constant trivia thing that I keep coming across with Polaroid is that when Outkast released that music song, whatever it's called, track, where they shout down the microphone, shake it like a Polaroid picture. Polaroid released a statement saying, when you take your Polaroid, don't shake it. It will develop fine. I don't know.
Yeah, so patience is the name of the game here. If you try to do that, you will in fact damage the quality of the print itself.
Well, everyone knows that Outkast were just a corporate band that were employed by the digital companies to do that. Because everyone started like, oh, I've taken a Polaroid, what should I do? You've heard the Outkast song. All right, I'll do that. Oh, this is rubbish. I'll never fucking use Polaroid again. Barbara, we're going digital. I'm glad that Outkast have opened my eyes. I was shaking the Polaroid picture. Maybe they're not talking about developing there. Maybe it's just like, get some Polaroids that you took years ago and shake them until you get a message like really from the devil, and then do what that says. Right?
Just destroy these precious memories that you may have tucked away.
I bet you're one for family albums.
I know they exist somewhere in the old family estate.
I think since digital, I think that has been a good thing, because it has meant that people save a lot less of their photos. they take a lot more, which is irritating, but
yeah, but invariably it's on iPhones, which end up in the fucking toilet or just crash at the end of their
that's what I'm saying,
13-month life.
That's what I'm saying. I can't think of any fucking holiday snaps I've taken in the last 15 years that I know the location of. The stuff from when I was 12 that I took on a fucking disposable camera, I know where those photos are.
Yeah, I think so. I think with digital cameras, I think I can probably count on, like, I want to say one hand, but definitely two, like the amount of pictures that have been taken of me in like the last 5 years.
Yeah, but you're using your hands just as stumps, right? So it's like two, like 1, 2. What?
Oh,
what? Wait, sorry. What? In the last 5 years, there've been less than 10 photos taken of you.
I mean, I've lived quite a remote lifestyle, right? I don't go out anywhere. There's no one taking pictures of me. I mean, I'm definitely not, in the house by myself, fucking loving myself. Yeah, there's nothing there. But
you never go on like a night out with your girlfriend and she takes photos or anything?
Not to my
knowledge.
Not to my knowledge. I mean, I'm not there.
just of me looking morose.
Damien Mark II is doing that.
Boyfriend too. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh, I do remember. Yeah, there's these kind of the last pictures that was taken of me as at work. They had a photographer coming in because they were kind of like switching things up with new management, this, that, and the other. And I kind of wanted to like pimp up their image a little bit and get some new stuff online and what have you. So they had a photographer come in, and I went up there as this guy's like milling about, and I just knew that as soon as I start pissing around, like setting things up, he's going to start like taking pictures of me. So I made a point of looking as sullen and as miserable as I possibly could, thinking that if I looked angry and as uncomfortable as possible, he will kind of like get the picture and not fucking do it. Because I couldn't really tell them like no fucking pictures, because he was just going to do it anyway. He's just kind of milling around.
Yep.
Management would be like, fucking lump it. And I thought, that's fine. He ended up taking a couple of pictures, and I thought, oh well, he's taken millions. It's not going to be. It'll be fine.
I'm waiting for a day. Are you the face of your restaurant? And
I am.
It's
the
like
fucking
droopy
face
drawers.
of my restaurant.
No, you're not. No way.
I am. They fucking went ahead and like fucking plastered it all over fucking Instagram, and I'm pretty sure it's on the fucking website as well.
And do you look miserable?
Oh, I do look miserable. Yes, yeah.
But also, you reminded me, I was at a wedding fairly recently, and the wedding had happened. It was the reception, and it was kind of before everyone starts dancing to pounding, bizarrely unromantic music. And I was eating, and this wedding photographer came along and started taking photos of me eating. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? No one's going to want to see... I don't even know the fucking bride and groom, right? As ever, I'm here entirely through weird circumstances.
Under complete duress. A while back, I won like the Employee of the Month fucking thing, right? And they have like this little poster, and they have like the winners, of each month and what have you. A little frame with all the winners and what have you, and everyone's looking really, really happy, and it just like plods along until it gets to me, and again, look completely fucking miserable. Again, like I've been lined up at the fucking police station. It may as well have been.
Sum up Damien Benedict in one incident. He won Employee of the Month, and they didn't even ask him to have his photo taken to put up on the wall, because they knew that would not lead to any joy for anyone.
I actually, for a long time, they never announced any winners, and I don't think and I kind of felt like I was like the last person to do it, and I was like so fucking like underwhelmed by it. I thought it's not fucking worth it anymore.
You mean like after the inanimate carbon rod had won it, you knew that it was your turn?
Oh no, it was precisely that, because every other fucking shitheel under the sun in that company had like won it, because it is like a condition that everyone has to win it once, which I think is fucking mind blowing. And I was literally the bottom of the fucking list. I was the only person left, and that's how I knew I'd fucking got it.
I'm really sorry, just as a tiny aside, we'll go back to it, but I've just got an email. The email is from Maya, and the subject is, Janice is looking to get roughed up.
Sign me the fuck up.
Did you know there are women in your city that want to meet and fuck? And the fuck is followed by both a question mark and an exclamation mark. Yeah.
Shocking. You never would have thought that.
Maya, I did know that there are women in my city that want to meet and fuck. Yes, I did know that. Find their profiles here. Best of all, the ladies you want to meet are waiting for you. I'm sure they are, because they're prostitutes. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard roughed up mean like banged. It's more like beaten up.
Yeah, that is. It is a peculiar terminology, but maybe it's just it's what we bring to it, like in our own kind of perspective.
Yeah, because I suppose banged, that can mean beaten up as well. Like, I banged him out, blood.
Yeah, I'd have made that connection as well at school. There's like people like, yeah, I'd fucking bang him right out and shit like that. And like part of me is always thinking like, I know a lot of people use that for fucking as well. And kind of like crease up on the insides like, gay.
You didn't say I'll bang him out. You said I'll bang one out thinking about him because I like men. I'm sorry, what? Oh, nothing, Dad. Going back to what you were saying about Employee of the Month and getting it, don't you work with someone, or didn't you work with someone who was the head chef, but they only fired him after discovering literally 200 empty beer cans in the ceiling tiles above where he works? And it was like, oh, it all makes sense. He's got a terrible drinking problem. A terrible, terrible drinking problem that is so bad he'll probably die in the next year. How have we not noticed this? Employee of the Month.
No, but that's kind of an amalgam of two different like stories about two different people there. But there was one guy that was like this pitiful fucking alcoholic who used to like steal like the boxed brandy off the pastry section and almost like dunk his head in the deep fryers. And once they like started,
he dunked his head in the deep fryers.
No, but almost. He used to get
absolute alcohol.
Sorry? No. But he'd just like fucking take like this like 3-liter box, for like a bit, and just burn through it as quick as he could.
Oh.
But he'd be like on fryer duty, and he just, people would see him, all the blood would flush in his fucking face and what have you, and he just couldn't stand up. And there were points where he's kind of like lifting chips up, but he's overloaded the fryer, and like there's enough weight in that basket that, instead of like pulling the things out, he's actually bringing himself closer to it and almost keels over and like just fucking face plants the fucking fry. He never did, of course, but he was kind of pulled back. And after that, they
You
kind
never
of
have any luck, do you, Damien? Just when you thought, oh, I'm Damien Benedict, ever so humble. Oh, maybe I'll see a death. Maybe I'll see a grisly mutation today. Oh, no. Nothing ever happens for me. Damien Benedict, ever so humble.
my bloodthirst will not be satiated today.
And then they just find you rocking in the fucking grocery cup. What would you call it? Pantry? Rocking in the pantry.
Pantry, yeah, was it?
Rocking in the Pantry sounds like something Cliff Richard wrote in 60s, all about fucking, and then it just denied it ever since. It was just rocking on your haunches in the pantry, going, "Shipwreck is the captain of my ship, So,
it was a good time. It was a better time. Where has my life gone?
Why don't you ever comfort Damien? Oh, well, while he's in this mood, he does peel a lot of potatoes.
Like the donkey work is second to none when he's in this zone. It's absolutely fine. He'll burn himself out. He'll have a little cry, a little nap in the fridge there. But he's fine. It's entirely self-contained. This aggression. He won't ever give anyone else any grief.
I used to go to a really nice Indian restaurant, one of the best in Sheffield. It was award-winning, and I would go there every so often. And I remember once I walked out of it and walked kind of down the street it was on a corner on, and I walked past its gate, if you like, the kind of service gate, and its gate was open, and I looked in, and as you would expect at the back of a restaurant, it was kind of, I wouldn't call it dirty, but there was a lot of stuff all about, like empty kegs of beer and stuff, and like broken pallets and things like that. But most notably, amongst the kind of like the old shit that they hadn't got around to clearing out and stuff, there was a garden shed, and in the garden shed door was open, and in the garden shed there was a single light bulb hanging from the garden shed, and that was it. And there was an Indian man in a vest that had once been white. He was sat on a stool, hunched over, and beside him were about 100,000 potatoes. And that was his job. He just peeled potatoes in this tiny shed. And I guess like every so often they let him open the door.
15 minutes of, an 18-hour day. But don't get any ideas above your station, boy.
Yeah, that's right. You can't leave the shed in that time.
Yeah, they gave him a sizable bucket for, his necessaries. We could like 8-litre thing, more than he could possibly fill in a day, particularly with his water allowance. It's fine. So he wouldn't be working his own filth. That would be despicable.
Damien, I ask you, what does he need to go out of the shed for? What does he need to leave for? He's got the bucket he's sat on. That's for him to have a shit. He's got potato. That's his lunch. He's got potato. That's his water. Potatoes are a great source of water. And then,
fuck it. We do, they wouldn't even have to waste any of their money on, like a food and drink allowance or anything like that.
Or waste any money opening the door. Maybe the door was always open.
Did you have a good look? Did you see if they managed to work in a small cot for him to kind of sleep?
Oh yeah, no, I had a really good look.
I
wanted to identify how many moles he had on his face. Wanted to see how many fillings he had in his teeth. So I was waiting for him to open his mouth at one point, but. No, he didn't have a cot, but I couldn't see what was kind of like on the ceiling level of the shed. So maybe he had like a bunk above, because you wouldn't want
maybe like a hammock or something like that.
You
nice
wouldn't let
him
take up any of the floor space, would you? Yeah, it'd be a hammock or something. Yeah,
kind of like harness, for lack of a better term. It's kind of like a couple of belts around like a coat hook or something like that he slips his arm through. So even when he does fall asleep, something is suspending him, so he's not going to fall flat on his face into the potatoes.
So who was the other guy who I was conflating two stories with? You said that there was.
The guy that would deep fried his face was the guy that after they confiscate the brandy, would smuggle in loads of Stella cans, and he'd as opposed to disposing them in a bin, he decided to start stashing them in the ceiling.
I love the idea that you'd be like, well, you can't drink any more brandy on the job. Not like sack him or anything, Not like maybe you dude, you need to get fucking help or anything like that. Yeah, you bring in your own drink from now on. Don't be drinking our brandy.
No, it's the other guy who was the head chef at the time. Had problems with his kidneys or stuff like that. And he would take loads of time off because he had to have some minor surgeries and stuff like that. And there were a few kind of apparently complications, but like post-surgery with like infections and what have you. So he took a little bit of extra time off, this, that, and the other. But he started kind of like losing touch with the managers in the restaurant. You know, he had to take more time off, this, that, and the other, more physiotherapy. You know, that's what they were told. And he came back very briefly for one day. He was still like, you could see that he was still quite sickly. And it's like, wow, you know, he's taken a long time to recover. But like all the social media networks were kind of like linked up, you know, with the supervisors, managers, all this, that, and the other. And like the day after, you know, they kind of like sent him away. But they didn't send him away. He asked for more time off, right? Well, we didn't really ask. He just said, "I'm taking more time off," because he kind of like said it. And
why did he have such power? Is he the only person in London who can peel potatoes?
Well, he had, you know, he'd worked for some very high class restaurants and stuff like that. You know, for a while there was a lot of prestige, and you know.
I didn't realise that. So this guy was a known chef.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And he had quite a few TV appearances, not too much, but you know, you can dig him out on like Saturday
Damien,
morning kitchen.
You're gonna have people guessing who it is now. Like who's a chef who's been on TV, who's kind of fallen from grace, has a massive alcohol problem. It's Bryan Singer.
Well,
isn't
if they want to submit their, you know, suggestions, I might, you know, give a nod. But
all right,
you know, he fucked off again. You know, taking time to kind of convalesce, and they busted him on, like, I think it was like Facebook or Instagram, stuff like that, because he was just at the fucking pub. He just took a picture of, you know, of him, you know, in the beer garden, just like all these empty fucking pint glasses, like fucking.
Oh my god! Like he was proud of it.
Yeah, no, he was, because I think there was some football match on his team was playing, and he was really fucking into it. And it's like, you know, he kept coming in saying, like, you know, I'm completely teetotal. This kind of stuff is going to completely fuck up my kidneys out of something so delicate. I really can't afford to. It's my life at stake. And they just find this guy like getting shit faced, and they've got him banged to fucking rights.
Connected with all the management. So yeah, we're back on the 17th of August, but there's still one episode next week, and we'll try and make it, you know, not totally shit. And we might talk about something that is quite memey and quite closed off to the outside world, and something that only a few people who've listened to all of these will get. We're going to be talking about Ramsey, all right? We haven't mentioned Gordon Ramsay in 20 episodes. We're going to be talking about Ramsey.
That was a favourite. Maybe some Spacey as well.
Probably some Spacey. Probably a little bit more Frasier, really.
Okay, yeah, I think we should probably go back to what we started, but you know, we've got a week to kind of get our shit together. It's fine.
And who knows? There may be a guest appearance from Tim Allen.
Oh,
all right.
Okay, no, you'll have to tune in and find out.
All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, all these people are going to be on the podcast. You can do a Tim Allen impression, right? All of these people are going to be on the podcast. So tune in next week. There's going to be 6 people on the podcast: me, Damien, and those other 4 people who I mentioned, but don't care to repeat the names of. All right. I'll see you.
Nice sign off. Excellent stuff.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, see you next week.